She looked me in the eye across the table and said, with a calmness so casual it was almost insulting, "I don't regret a thing." The words didn't sting the way she probably hoped. No, they only confirmed what I already knew. The woman sitting across from me wasn't my wife anymore, at least not in the ways that mattered. Maybe she still wore her wedding ring. Maybe her last name still matched mine. But everything else, loyalty, respect, even basic decency, was long gone. In its place sat this hardened version of her, the one sipping Pinot Noir with perfectly steady hands, as if this were just another Tuesday evening. I took a slow sip of my own wine. Not to calm my nerves, I didn't have any left, but to buy myself another moment to admire the symmetry of it all. She had no idea what tonight really was. She thought this was a last-ditch dinner, a desperate attempt from a broken man trying to save his marriage. She probably expected tears, a speech about our history, the kids, our vows, maybe even a plea for another chance. But she was wrong. This wasn't about saving anything. This was the funeral. The waiter approached, a nervous kid in a vest that didn't quite fit, asking if we were ready to order. She smiled politely and said yes. I told him we needed a moment longer. Not because I needed time to look at the menu, I already knew I wouldn't be eating tonight, but because she didn't need to know that. She turned back to me, swirling her wine like she was about to critique its legs. "I mean, can we just be honest here?" she asked, her voice light, almost amused. "You knew, right? You had to have suspected something." "I did," I said. It was the truth. I had suspected it months ago. The late-night gym sessions that left her makeup perfectly intact, the new lingerie that never made an appearance in our bedroom, the sudden but sharp decline in physical affection, as if kissing me might leave a taste she didn't want. Yeah, I suspected. I knew. I confirmed. She mistook my calm for denial. "I thought so," she said, smirking. "You always seem like the type who'd rather live in blissful ignorance than confront reality. You know, keep the image intact." I didn't react. That was her move: bait, provoke, distort. When you don't give her the reaction she's looking for, she loses her footing. And I was steady. Her smirk faded slightly. The restaurant was small, elegant, intimate, the kind of place with a soft jazz trio in the corner and napkins folded like origami. I chose this place because I wanted it to be quiet, controlled. I wanted her to feel like this was a date, a reset. She dressed for it. Tight black dress, curled hair, perfume I hadn't smelled in months. But I wasn't here for the show. "I know this sounds harsh," she continued, "but I don't feel guilty. I don't think I ever will." I nodded, took another slow sip of my wine, and set the glass down gently. "I believe you." She blinked just once, but I caught it. She was expecting a fight. Maybe even a threat. The silence unsettled her. "You're not going to ask me why?" "No." "You're not going to say anything?" Her voice tightened at the edges now. "I will," I said, glancing at my watch. "Just not yet." Her eyes flicked to my wrist, then back to mine. Confusion. "Good." She leaned in. "You brought me here to what? Sit in silence while you act like you're above all this?" I held her gaze, unblinking. "No. I brought you here so you'd have a comfortable place to say whatever you needed to say. To get it out. Feel powerful. In control." She scoffed. "Excuse me." "Because I knew," I continued, "that tonight would be the last night you'd ever feel like that." Her eyes narrowed. "You think you're threatening me?" "No. Threats are for people who haven't already made their move." And there it was, that flicker of doubt. That instinct deep inside her chest warning her that maybe she wasn't holding the cards tonight. She opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. "I let you speak," I said, my voice still even. "Now I will." I reached into my jacket and set a small, folded envelope on the table. Her name was written in neat cursive across the front. Her fingers hesitated before picking it up. "What is this?" Her voice lost some of its edge. "Something you'll want to read." But not here. Read it when you're home. She exhaled sharply. You're being cryptic and dramatic. Maybe, I said, standing up and pushing in my chair. Or maybe I just know that by dawn you'll beg for forgiveness. She scoffed, rolling her eyes. I turned and walked away before she could finish the laugh. Let her enjoy the wine. Let her enjoy the quiet hum of the jazz trio. Let her believe just for a little while longer that she still had some kind of control. It would all start unraveling soon enough. By morning, she wouldn't be the one sipping wine that she'd be choking on regret. People always talk about betrayal like it's a single moment. Like there's a day, an hour, a second when everything changes. That's not how it felt for me. For me, it was a slow leak. A quiet hiss in the background of our marriage that I couldn't quite place, until one day I realized I was already drowning. It started subtly. A missed text. A deflected kiss. The way her eyes glazed over when I talked about my day. First, I blamed stress. We both worked long hours, had late meetings. She was a project manager at some boutique marketing firm that prided itself on being young and fast. That should have been my first red flag. Turns out young and fast described more than just their client turnaround time. But I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband. So I rationalized. Defended her in my head. Told myself every couple has dry spells, especially after 8 years. Then came the gym membership. She hadn't stepped foot in a gym since our honeymoon. Suddenly, she was going 4 times a week, always around 8 p.m., always with a full face of makeup. I made one joke about it, and she bit my head off. Can I want to take care of myself without you turning it into something ugly? Ugly. That word stuck with me. It was always the pattern with her. If I asked a question, I didn't trust her. If I brought up a concern, I was controlling. If I expressed pain, I was insecure. She was a master at flipping the mirror, making me question myself while she disappeared further behind the curtain. But mirrors don't lie forever. It was a Sunday afternoon when the first crack split clean through. She left her phone face up on the counter while she was in the shower. Normally, I wouldn't have touched it. I'm not proud of what I did. But the moment the screen lit up and I saw the name Eric, a message preview flashing beneath it, still thinking about last night, something in me snapped. I didn't even open it. I didn't need to. She came out of the shower humming, wrapped in a towel, her hair damp. When she saw me standing there, staring at her phone, her expression didn't change. Not immediately. But when she saw my eyes, saw the way I looked at her, something in her froze. You went through my phone. Not that's not what you think. Not I can explain. Not even who's Eric? No. She went straight to the counterattack. I held up my hands. I didn't open anything. Just saw the message. You had no right. That's what she said. Not I'm sorry. Not let me talk. Not anything that even remotely resembled remorse. You had no right. I nodded. Okay. That was the moment I knew. Not just that she was cheating, I could have forgiven that. Maybe. Not just that she was lying, I already suspected that. No. What gutted me wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the ease, casualness of it all, like breaking our vows meant less than breaking a dinner reservation. Like I was the problem for noticing. The next few weeks were a blur. She tried to act normal, asked what I wanted from the grocery store, sat next to me on the couch, scrolled through Netflix like everything was fine. But it wasn't. Something in me had already detached. I went to work. I smiled when I needed to. I played the part. But inside, I was setting traps. I installed a security camera in the living room, said it was for package theft. She didn't ask questions. I backed up our shared drive, our messages, her emails, all quietly, all legally. I started paying closer attention to her moods, her excuses, even her scent when she came home. You learn a lot when you stop reacting. When you start observing. I didn't confront her again, because I wasn't looking for an apology. I was preparing for a reckoning. The final piece came from an unlikely source. Her sister. Melanie called me one night, half drunk, voice tight with guilt. "I can't watch the charade anymore," she said. "I don't agree with what she's doing, but blood is blood." A pause. Then, "Just check her email. Look at her events folder." So I did. And there it was. Dinner reservations, hotel bookings, fake work trips, messages to a contact named Ray. Except Ray wasn't a woman. Ray was an alias. I traced the number. Eric. Full name Eric Randolph. Her junior colleague. 10 years younger. Instagram full of gym selfies, crypto rants, and motivational quotes. Hustle hard. Yeah. And cheat harder, I guess. I didn't confront her. Not yet. That night, I sat on the porch with a glass of whiskey, staring up at the sky, because at least the sky felt honest. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just made a decision. If she could play her part, so could I. And when the curtain finally dropped, I'd make sure the audience knew who the real villain was. Melanie's tip wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Once I confirmed Eric's identity and connected the dots through emails and calendar invites, everything fell into place. They'd been careful, but not careful enough. She booked a hotel room for an out-of-town pitch meeting, except the room wasn't anywhere near the office. It was a boutique hotel, the kind of place with no front desk cameras and room service that doesn't knock if you leave the privacy tag on the door. I didn't rush. I documented. I printed the emails, screenshotted the calendar logs, captured the IP addresses. Her messages to Ray were enough to establish intent. And once I paid a visit to the hotel front desk, flashing my ID, pretending to be her worried husband, I got the dates and room confirmations I needed. Not illegal, just persuasive. But the video? That was the crown jewel. That's where I got a little creative. See, when Melanie gave me the tip about the events folder, she also told me something else. Something that hadn't left my mind since she said it. She brags about how you'll never leave. Says you're too passive. That even if you found out, you wouldn't know what to do. That's when it stopped being about betrayal and started being about control. She didn't just cheat. She gambled that I'd do nothing about it. And that was my invitation. I knew the only way to end this wasn't to leave quietly. It was to make her sit in the wreckage of what she'd built. To make her feel the silence the same way I had, only this time not as a victim, as a witness to her own collapse. So I went to someone who owed me a favor. His name's Jordan, a buddy from college who now runs a tech security company. Back in the day, I helped him get through a brutal semester of physics by rewriting half his problem sets when his dad was in the hospital. He hadn't forgotten. "What you're asking," he said slowly, "is legal if you're installing it in your own home. I am. You want audio or video?" "Both." He nodded. No questions asked. 3 days later, a small, voice-activated camera sat nestled in our bedroom bookshelf. Another one was disguised as a charging station in the guest room, where she usually took calls when she didn't want to be disturbed. It didn't take long. One Thursday night, I told her I'd be at a work dinner. I wasn't. I sat in my car 4 blocks away, parked behind a florist shop, staring at nothing but the steering wheel and the live stream on my phone. She came home at 7:12 p.m., wearing that red dress, the one she never wore around me anymore. 7:31 p.m. Eric arrived. I watched as they stood in the hallway, her kissing his neck like it was the most natural thing in the world. He called her babe. She told him she couldn't believe I still hadn't figured it out. Then he laughed. She joined him. That laugh. That's what did it. I could handle the sex, the lies. But that laugh, that was ridicule. That was contempt. They weren't just unfaithful. They were entertained. I didn't storm in. I didn't interrupt. I waited. Waited until they were both asleep. Then, quiet as a whisper, I slipped in through the side door and retrieved the SD cards. The footage was already backed up. One copy for me. One for my attorney. And one for Eric's girlfriend, yeah. Turns out he had one. She posted about him just last week. #FutureHubby. Didn't take much digging to find her LinkedIn either. Marketing. Same firm. Of course. But I wasn't done yet. For the next 2 weeks, I moved quietly. I met with a lawyer, a good one. Explained the situation. Shared the evidence. We drafted divorce papers. I shifted funds from our joint account into my protected personal account. Nothing illegal, just my pre-tax contributions. I froze her auto payments. Canceled the Netflix. The Spotify. The spa membership she used more than our bedroom. I updated my will. Changed my emergency contact at work. Moved sentimental items, photos, keepsakes, my father's watch, into storage. Piece by piece, I peeled her off my life. And she didn't suspect a thing. She was too busy playing house with Eric while I packed up the foundation underneath her feet. It was almost poetic. The final play was the dinner. I chose the restaurant carefully. Scale but cozy. Intimate. Enough to make her feel comfortable. Enough class to make her believe I still cared. She thought it was a white flag. She thought I'd come to beg. That's why she wore the black dress. That's why she smiled when she said, "I don't regret a thing." That's why I didn't flinch when she did. 'Cause she had no idea what was already in motion. Because by dawn, she'd be living in a completely different world. One she created. One she couldn't escape. She didn't text me that night. I expected she wouldn't. Maybe she was angry. Maybe she was still sitting at that restaurant table, replaying what I'd said. By dawn, you'll beg for forgiveness. Or maybe, deep down, she already knew. I was home when her first call came in. 12:47 a.m. I let it ring out. Voicemail. 3 minutes later, another call. Then a text. "What did you do?" No hi. No what's going on. Just that. Panic had started. I leaned back in my chair, glass of bourbon in hand, and waited. At 1:14 a.m., another message arrived. Why is my card declining? That one made me smile. Then another. A little more frantic. My Uber account is locked. What the hell is going on? I didn't reply. I wasn't going to say anything. Not yet. I wanted her to feel the silence for a change. 2:08 a.m. I got an email. Subject line, "Please talk to me." I didn't open it. I was already forwarding everything to my lawyer. But the real blow? That landed at 8:03 and he came to the house. Knocked. Rang the bell. Called my name. I watched from the upstairs window as she stood on the porch, makeup running, phone clutched like a lifeline. She looked small. So far from the woman who once smirked across a linen-covered table and said she didn't regret a thing. I waited. She knocked again. "Please. Can we talk?" Just 5 minutes. I let her sit in the silence. Let her feel it. Let it soak in. Then, finally, I opened the door. Not because I wanted to talk, but because I wanted to finish it. She looked up, startled, tear-streaked eyeliner, desperation in her eyes. "Thank you." She stepped forward quickly. I raised a hand. "I'm not here to reconcile." She stopped. "I'm not here to yell. Or fight. Or forgive." Her face crumpled. "Then why?" "I'm here," I said slowly, "to return what's yours." I handed her a box. Nothing big. Just a cardboard container with her wedding ring, the spare house key, copy of the divorce filing, and on top, one last envelope. "What's this?" she whispered. "Your own words." Inside the envelope were printed texts, emails, calendar invites, photos, every excuse, every lie. "I didn't want you to forget who wrote this story." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Just a sound, low, broken, an exhale more than a sob. I stepped back inside and closed the door. Quietly. No screaming. No slammed doors. Just closure. Strange. I thought I'd feel angry. Triumphant, maybe. But all I felt was calm. I didn't destroy her. She just finally got to meet the version of me she underestimated. The one who doesn't chase. The one who watches from across the table, steady-eyed, a glass of wine in hand, already knowing that by dawn she'd beg for forgiveness. And I wouldn't have to say a word. The last time I saw her was from behind the glass. She stood in the driveway for maybe 20 minutes after I shut the door. She didn't cry the way I expected her to. Or maybe she did. But not the panicked, spiraling kind of sobs I heard in that voicemail. This was something quieter. Numb. The way someone looks when they realize they're already underwater, and no one is coming to pull them out. Eventually, she got into her car and left. She didn't take the box with her. I let it sit there overnight, untouched on the porch. In the morning, I moved it to the edge of the yard and placed a small note on top. Return to sender. It rained that day. By the time she came back for it, everything inside was soaked. I didn't watch her this time. I just heard the crunch of tires, the slam of a car door, the sound of cardboard peeling off wet concrete. She didn't knock again. And that was how it ended. No dramatic screaming match. No one cheating with a sibling. No setting clothes on fire in the yard. Just silence. Precision. And something far more devastating than anger. Being erased. You'd think that would be enough, right? Divorce papers signed. Finances separated. Public reputations, if not ruined, at least bloodied. I could have closed that chapter. Moved on. But I still had one more thing to do. 'Cause it was never just about what she did. It was about who she tried to convince me I was. The helpless husband. The oblivious doormat. The boring fallback guy you settle for until something stronger comes along. The one you can lie to, manipulate, discard, and still expect him to show up, hold your hand, and beg for another chance. That version of me? He died the second she said, "I don't regret a thing." So I wrote something. Not a manifesto. Not some angry online post. Just a letter. To her parents. To Eric's girlfriend. To my family, the ones who knew something felt off but didn't want to overstep. It was short. It said, "I've decided not to justify her actions, nor mine. What happened between us is over. There's no need for speculation. If you want answers, ask her. If she tells the truth, you'll know everything. If she lies, you'll know even more." Daniele sent it. Then I closed the email account we used as a couple. I canceled the shared phone plan. Changed all my passwords. Deleted our wedding photos from my cloud backup. Not out of spite, but because I didn't want to remember the performance. I archived one. Just one. Tucked it into a locked drive labeled before I knew. The house feels lighter now. I didn't sell it. Didn't remodel it. I just reclaimed it. Little things. Hanging up my own artwork instead of the decor she picked because it was on trend. Cooking meals that didn't revolve around whatever fad diet she was on. Letting the silence in the evenings be peace, not punishment. Some nights, I sit out on the back porch with a drink and listen to the wind move through the trees. I used to do that even when she was here. But back then, it felt like an escape. Now it feels like coming home. She still texts every so often. Nothing dramatic. Just breadcrumbs. Hope you're well. Can we talk? I miss your steadiness. I never reply. Not because I'm trying to be cruel, but because some messages don't deserve answers. I don't hate her. That's what surprises people the most when they ask. Those few who know the whole story. I don't wish her pain. I just finally understand that I was never the weak one. I was the storm she didn't see coming. The man who didn't raise his voice because he didn't have to. And when she whispered across that restaurant table, "I don't regret a thing," I simply smiled. Because I knew. By dawn, she'd learn what regret really tasted like.